It's one of the most common questions of doing email marketing, which is, what's the right number of emails to send someone?
Within Marketing Cloud is one of the Einstein features, and it's called engagement frequency scoring. And what that does is that it uses AI to automatically sort of put your subscribers into a category if they're oversaturated or undersaturated in terms of the amount of emails that they're getting from you, and that it bases it off of how your subscribers engage with your emails, like if they open and click or even unsubscribe. So you can use that information then to also take a look at, so if you have a lot of oversaturated subscribers, for example, try to limit the amount of emails that you're sending. And one way of doing that is to allow for your subscribers to subscribe to different lists. So instead of sending every single email campaign that your marketing team has ever thought of to everyone, you can just say, okay, let's create a list for promotions only, or let's create a list for only new announcements, or, it depends on the industry, of course.
Different departments may have different desire to send emails. How do you decide who gets to send the email if you know certain customers will only going to accept one or two, at which point it gets annoying?
The best thing would be to have the subscriber, him or herself, decide, create a preference center, as they call it, on which you allow people to opt in to these different messages themselves. So then if this person only wants service announcements, then the decision is made already. So say you just started out with this preference center, then of course you don't have that much data yet about these preferences. Yeah, that's a different story. That's very much dependent on the company, of course. But I would recommend something like what would provide the highest value to both the business and the customer. So I would say, important updates about an order has preference over, some retargeting email.
So, because what's interesting about this is traditionally the idea has been, we'll find about the right amount of emails and send them pretty much to everybody and tailor the amount of content. But what you're also saying now is tailor the frequency of emails to specific users as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can make that as complex as you want in order to decide, what is the ruling of who gets what kind of email. But if you start with what the subscriber actually wants, then you're usually good.
If someone's starting out doing this and they say, okay, we are in a situation where we have just been sending one a week, and we decided that we did some testing a while back and we realized that more than that would upset people, so we left it at that. And now we want to move to adjusting frequency based on this approach. What's the way to go about that? How would someone start doing that?
You could go into, creating different newsletter for different segments, for example, but that doesn't, it means that you need to have those segments defined. And that's also not always the case. So it really depends on if you, if the client already has a sort of a content offering that they can split out into different lists, basically. So, like I just said, with newsletters or with promotions or with updates. So that's one thing that needs to be decided, usually by management, like what is the sort of the strategic direction that we want to take with that. And then on the other hand, you need to make sure that people actually want to receive those kind of things as well. So it needs to be connected to the end customer's needs.
Right. Yeah, because one of the common things I've seen is that when the tools for personalization and targeting become more sophisticated, there's a desire to do more personalization and more targeting, but that very quickly leads to the need to create a lot more content.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, now we can segment into 15 segments and we can target in 5 different ways, and we don't have the content to support this. So what's your feeling then on terms of finding the sweet spot? Because there's a sweet spot, I think, which is both frequency of contact, amount of content, versus the complexity and effort of producing all of that content. Because the more, so does this approach enable you to sort of test your way and navigate your way to find out where you're getting the best result?
If you're starting from scratch, to just come up with a few hypotheses, and for example, you have an hypothesis, okay, we have 4 different segments, and we're going to segment them based on a few data points that you have about your subscribers, and then just sort of send those campaigns in that segmented manner and see if the engagement goes up versus the control group. So then you can already start to see, like, is this segmentation, does it make sense? Do we see better results? And if yes, then you can continue refining that. If no, then you need to think of something else.
Okay, so to basically create a segment, create some bespoke content, run the campaign, and then say, are we seeing any improvements, measurable improvements? And that's
Exactly.
that's my justification for doing it.
Yeah. So it starts with a bit of an educated guess. I would say, most clients do know quite a bit about their client, about their customers.
What about other channels? Can you expand this to talk about, say, contacting via, I know if people would add like a WhatsApp or a social channel, does it integrate?
So there's no built-in functionality to for the system to decide what channel is most appropriate to get in contact with a subscriber. It's actually this question triggers me about this new tool that Salesforce just purchased, or not that long ago, which is they called it Interaction Studio.
Okay.
And this is like basically a customer data platform that also allows you to take action based on all of the data that you ingested. So basically, it will take in the behavior data from your website, from email behavior, from advertising, whatever, puts all that data together and tries to make sure there's one. It tries to identify single people across these different channels, and then it will suggest like a next best action. And it also includes that tool also includes on what channel that would be.
Okay.
So that is like the sort of the new holy grail that Salesforce is advertising, is that when with that tool everything really comes together within one platform, and then basically that will decide for you what's the next best thing to do.
That's clever. I guess hopefully once it's fully up and running, a next action also being reduced frequency of contact will be a possible action as well. Like maybe if it can go that far, that would be great.
Or the action could be suppress for now.
Yeah.
Do not contact someone after they just purchased something.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That can be a bit raw when you just bought something expensive from someone, and then 2 days later they're trying to sell you something else expensive. You're like, hold on a minute.
Yeah. Or you get a discount on that product that you just bought full price.
Oof, yeah. That's how to have an unhappy post-purchase experience right there.
Exactly. Yeah. But with a good Marketing Cloud implementation, you would have, you foresee that situation. So you if you have someone that thinks ahead, then they would have implemented that in Marketing Cloud already as well.
Great. I'm going to ask you one last question, which is like the complete beginner question, which is, in your experience, what is a reasonable contact frequency, and what are the variables? So if someone said to you, I want you to give me my starting frequency suggestions so I can take them to my business before we start optimizing and reacting, I want a baseline. What do you think are some sensible baselines, and how much variation might there be for different customers or different industries, for example?
From past experience, I would say maybe once a week for most e-commerce players. So there's usually some either sort of new discounts, new products, sort of new topics that you want to communicate. Then once a week is doable, and it's not invasive, but it's still high frequency enough in order for you to learn about your subscribers based on how they engage with it. So I would say, try to start with once a week. With the assumption that you have enough content and you actually have something to tell your base.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then I'm going to ask you for a special bonus question, which is, if you're going to go once a week, is there a particular day of the week that you have ever found makes a difference, or is that irrelevant?
An old manager of mine always wanted to send at Sunday morning at around 10, so that people would read their emails for breakfast, basically.
Okay.
On a lazy Sunday. But Yeah, it's very dependent on your on the clients, like on what kind of product or content you're sending. But there is also built-in functionality in most email tools now that will actually show you what is the best send time. So
Okay.
I would say look at the data.
Okay, so send it at different times and see if the open rate or the response rate changes at different times, and zero in. Maybe even find different people who like different times and learn that eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And so with if you have running journeys that are triggering based on behavior of subscribers, then these emails will send sort of throughout the day, so that the system can learn, especially from those kind of emails, because it's not this big campaign that you send at one specific point in time. These are sort of continuous running campaigns. So it's a bit more valid data for the algorithms to process.